another episode of the Square and Compass podcast. Back finally, virtually, anyways, in California, because I've had the chance to visit in person a couple times California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and it's always been a pleasure. When I was in Los Angeles, I got to meet with, and actually San Francisco, actually, I got to meet with worshipful brother Laurent Khaiat. Um, and it's great to have him back on the podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So you are coming off some, pretty special things in the last year or so, and even in the last month or so. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you know, I've known a lot of Masons who've had different honors over the years. You're the first one I know of who's had actually a lodge dedicated to him, or named in honor of him. And to have the Grand Lodge come down and do that dedication in Long Beach. Tell me about that, because I think that's, from what I know of you and having met you, I know you're well deserving. But just tell me about what that experience was like, having that dedication.
I tell you, worshipful brother Cameron, it was fun. I've never seen it being done before myself, so this was also my first time seeing it. Um, it was a very it's a big honor for to have received that from the Long Beach Scottish Rite and the worshipful brother, another worshipful brother who helped me to get this dedication. Doesn't matter if I say his name, nobody would know him. But when they have decided to dedicate the lodge to me, the lodge was being built. It was a brand new lodge room, and they asked me to come down to verify the construction plans to make sure they were to my likings. In the beginning, obviously, I thought it was some kind of a joke or something. So, but I went down and it wasn't a joke. And the lodge was being built. They put a beautiful plaque at the entrance of the lodge that dedicated to me. And then the Grand Lodge came and did the dedication. The lodge is rented by five different lodges now. So, which none of the money goes to me, but that's okay. I'm just happy that my name is on it. Yeah.
The, you know, I think that, it's a great example um, of, I'm trying to think of the right terms for it. Dedicating a lodge to an individual. I think it's a great type of recognition, but it's also something that hope.
Hello?
Oh, sorry, I think I pressed the mute button there. Sorry about that. Um, what was I saying?
I
Yeah, I
don't know.
think that. Well, that's true. I might edit that part out if I can. I think, and now the cops are going by. I think that I'm trying to think of the right term for this. Dedicating a lodge to an individual, one of the things that I hope it does is motivates other Masons, especially maybe some younger Masons, right? To remind them of, what they can do to make the craft better, right? I think that's one of those things. It's like no different than a Hiram Award or a Cornerstone Award here in Cornerstone Lodge here in Ontario, right? It's this idea of, I think it's a great way for the Grand Lodge to motivate members to try to see what they can do to make their mark on the craft and on Freemasonry. What are some of the things in your Masonic career, and I know it's been a long one, that you are, the most proud of and that you think maybe most contributed to having the lodge dedicated, or having Grand Lodge dedicate the lodge to you?
I think the Grand Lodge dedicated this lodge to me was a huge honor. I mean, I personally also don't know anyone that's alive that have a lodge with their own names. I don't think there's many people. I mean, you have to be dead over 100 years or more to have a name on a lodge. So I'm very lucky on that. And in my Masonic career, I've had a lot of accolades. I mean, I don't know. I think the most important thing to me was to have been worshipful master of my lodge uh, 4 times, 4 years in a row, actually. But that's not being 4 years in a row. Just being worshipful master of a lodge is, to me, the most um, important things in my Masonic life, more than receiving a higher reward, which I have received. But I think more than any other type, I think that's the most important for me. If people would learn something from it, people, I mean, by members of the craft, would be to dedicate more time to the craft, to become a better person, to be able to rise and see more light by changing position, and to accomplish what you and I have accomplished being worshipful master of the lodge. I think that is something that is very honorable, since you are elected. It's not an appointed position.
You know, that reminds me, one thing that's always reminded me of, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan or not, but there's this scene in Star Trek Generations, where Captain Kirk is talking to Captain Picard, and right, Captain Kirk said, the most important thing you can have, or the most important position you can have, is captain of the ship. Even though there might be higher ranks, there's admirals, and then there may be a higher rank than a captain of a ship. The captain of the ship is where you can do the most good and make the most impact. And I suspect that's true, right? There are other ranks, if that's the best term, right? There are other ranks that are higher than the master of a lodge, or that maybe have more of an honorific title. But being the master of a lodge is definitely, I think, where you will make the most impact, and have the biggest impact on the craft, and on your brethren, if you do it well and if you do it right. So yeah, I think master is a very important, maybe the most important position, if not the highest in Freemasonry.
I think I did it well. I was reelected 4 times so in a row, so that's pretty good. The lodge is moving along very well. You've been to my lodge, Los Angeles, number 42. You
I
have
did. I
been
loved it.
here.
I thought it was an
You visited
I thought
there,
it was an awesome logic.
and since then I founded um, total of three lodge. One of them I've already demitted from it. The other two, one of them is La France 885, which was that has just received the right to do the degrees in French, ancient accepted Scottish Rite degrees. It's the only lodge in Southern California that has the right to do that from the Grand Lodge of California. And it's the same as La Parfaite Union, which is in Northern California. It's the only lodge that have the right to do in French and should accept a degree. So there's only two lodges in the whole state of California that are allowed to do that. And lucky enough, I founded one of them and have the right. We just received the right at the last annual communication in November, end of October 2023. So it was very, very special. And I've been since before the when the lodge was under dispensation, so before and until now, which is the last 2 years, I've been the officer's coach. But I took a position in line to help the lodge since it's a brand new lodge. I'm the junior warden, so it's okay, it's you do whatever you can to help a lodge and to help the craft. It's okay. And I enjoy it. I think it's very special to be able to say that you are a founding member of a lodge that is the only one in Southern California that can do this type of degrees, and the same thing, with my other lodge that I've just joined, up in the Magic Castle, another one that's up and roll that's very special to me. And go ahead.
Yeah, that's the Cup and Ball Masonic Lodge. You're saying that that is a lodge made entirely of magicians, save yourself, that meets at the Magic Castle, which
With
is
with the
really
exception of me, right? I'm not a magician. I'm the only
so
exception. Yeah.
all but one are magicians. That's a very I'd love to learn the origin story of that lodge and how that came to be. Does it always meet at the Magic Castle? And what's it like being a Mason in a lodge full of magicians? You always got to make sure you got your wallet on you. I'm guessing those guys are pretty good at sleight of hand.
Well, I think this lodge was founded by Most Worshipful Real, a past Grandmaster last year of California, of Grandmaster of Masons in California. Most Worshipful founded the lodge as he is himself a magician, but he's been sick the last few couple months, so he hasn't been at the lodge. So I've never seen him in that lodge yet, but he's one of the founding guys of this lodge. I just started going there as a brand new member, and I was already appointed junior deacon. So now I'm going even to lower position, something I've done like, I don't know, when I first started. I mean, like so long ago, but lucky enough, as an office coach, I still remember the wording, so I'm okay.
Yeah, once you've been a Mason long enough, you start to. There's been more than a few guys who've repeated more than a few chairs. The you know the cup and I do want to go ahead to the cup and ball lodge. So is every one of their meetings, does it always take place at the Magic Castle? Um, and uh, just what is one of their meetings like? Is it no different than any other lodge meeting, or do they get the magic involved? I'm really curious as
These
to
are good
what
questions.
that's like.
These are good questions. I tell you that I'm a brand new member, so I was actually voted in the last state meeting, which I was present. That's when I became a member there, and directly was appointed to junior deacon. So let me explain to you a little bit about that lodge. Last weekend was their installation of officers. It was done in a steakhouse in the city of near Gardena or something, Commerce. It was this steakhouse that was completely full of people. Um, the the installation lasted about 2 minutes. So I've never seen an installation that quick in my life. Uh, Everything is done of a much more relaxed way, from the master all the way down to any chairs to the treasurer of the lodge is an inspector at large, so he's pretty well versed with Masonic rituals and everything. But if you say that's fine, it's fine. Like if you missing some stuff, no problem. It's a very relaxed job, lodge. I have actually never seen a lodge like that in my life. It's always very strict, very ritual. We have to do everything this way, this way. And this lodge is really not. It's the other way around. And I thought that was so cool. And I was like, I need to join that lodge. I think it's fun. Um, it's much more relaxed, and that's about it. I mean, it's fun watching people doing magic all night long in front of you in the lodge room, and even the lodge room is not done kind of correctly, but it's, you remember, we're in a magic castle. We're not in an actually large building, so it's very different.
Well, I mean, I think that's really cool. Right? There's no reason why lodges can't be fun. There's no reason why you can't add a little. I was once in a lodge where they did a animal balloons, or yeah, the education was how to make balloon animals. So there's no reason why sometimes the lodges can't be fun times as well. Or you add a little
Is
bit of
that
enjoyment.
is that lodge with the balloon? Is that same people from this lodge?
No, no, this was in Windsor. This was when I visited Rose Lodge. Um,
So they're magician too, probably, because that's magician. They do balloon stuff too.
I don't think he's not a musician. He just, it's funny. The brother who gave the presentation, he just took it up for fun as a as a fun hobby, and he got good at it. And so they were looking at what to do for Masonic education one day, and he brought in a bunch of balloons and pumps, and he showed us all how to make balloon animals. So there's nothing wrong, I think, with you know uh, trying to make lodges fun or interesting. And it also comes to this idea of, and I talked about this actually in my last podcast. You know, it's not just about bringing masonry or bringing the lodge into you. It's also about bringing yourself into lodge. So if you're a magician, you know, bringing magic into lodge and doing a presentation on that, or whatever outside interests you have, there's no reason why a brother may not find those of interest as well and may not want to take part in that, right? I think one of the biggest mistakes new Masons make, and sometimes they make this mistake and they're encouraged to make it by older members, is there's this idea that they have their life outside of Masonry, and then they have Freemasonry, and the two are never allowed to like interact. As opposed to, like I said, if you're a magician, you know, there's no reason why you can't go to your worshipful master and say, can I do a magic show for the brothers one lodge meeting, or a presentation about magic, right? I think,
Well,
or
the members of the lodge that are magician, they do shows for like Masonic Homes of California on Christmas time. They do magic show for them, obviously for free, but it's I think it's very cool. I mean, when we finish the state meetings, we go to dinner. I've been to state meeting before I was a member, and we go directly to the dinner in the Magic Castle, enjoy a beautiful dinner, and then we go through the magic shows in the castle until you ready to go home. So it's a lot of fun. It's not just a stated meeting into the Magic Castle, which is very old. It's a stated meeting, attend dinner after the meeting in the castle with all the other clients, and then go see the shows with all the other clients of the castle. There's many, many shows. Almost every magician in the world has been to the castle, including Houdini. That's who was a Mason. That's a long time ago.
I learned he was a Mason from Masons of California. So, which, by the way, I don't know if you can comment on this at all, or if you have any thoughts, but what a great job California has done on the social media um, side of it. I think, with the exception of maybe uh, UGLE, with the exception of maybe United Grad Lodge of England, uh, although it's arguable California might be ahead. I don't know of any other jurisdiction that has had as much success with social media and with the social media campaigns, the I'm a Mason campaign, the the articles I'm always seeing on the different accounts. I really think that your Grand Lodge, the Grand Lodge of California in particular, um, every Grand Lodge jurisdiction, there are things that they do well, there are things that they need work on, and that's true across the world. But for California, I think one of the things that they've done very, very well is their social media campaigns, and that's something I think California Masons should be really proud of.
I think they understood quickly that social media is important for communicating with especially the younger members of the craft. Uh, and you have an instant communication pretty much all over the world. Masonry is a universal, it's very universal. And the craft is United Grand Lodge of England. You think about the Duke of Kent has been the Grand Master for 52 years. I mean, that's a long time to be Grand Master. People are saying, oh, this guy's been Grand Master, blah. But, in Europe, and I don't know about in Canada, of course you do, but in Europe, the majority of the Grand Masters do 5 years and a 5 year after that, so it's 10 years term. That's a long time to be Grand Master of a country. In America, I don't know, but in California, to me, it's the 1 year term that they have as a Grand Master. In my opinion, it's not long enough. You need at least to be 2 years so you can accomplish all your goals that you want to have done for the future of California Masonry. That's my opinion. I think they should stay 1 more year, but as far as since I've been a Mason, it's always been 1 year, and we vote on resolutions once a year, and you've been there, so you know how it goes. New resolutions. So just like this year, the highest resolution that passed was for La France Lodge 885 to be able to do the degrees in French and Scottish Rite. Were the highest past resolution this year. I mean, 2023. 2023, yeah. Which was unbelievable, But to help the other brethren of California Masonry to understand what the French degree are, and a lot of people never seen it, but we actually did it on the Grand Lodge floor. We did a degree there just to show everyone, from Grand Lodge members to regular members of lodges, attendance, a degree in French before the resolution was passed. So I think this helped a lot of the people understand. And actually, I was part of that degree, which was done by the French Lodge up in California, in Northern California, by them. But they were missing one person, so I volunteered to do it. So I don't know. I think it's very cool to be able to make a little difference in the rituals from ancient and accepted Scottish Rite and to what we use now in California, which is completely different degree rituals. So it's good. And I'm the officers coach here, so it's good. I make sure the officers are in line.
It's a hard job. You mentioned that I've been to the annual communication before, which I have been. I've been to the California annual communication twice, and I loved it both times. I didn't get to go this year though, which I was really sad about. Or I guess I didn't get to go for 2023. Last year's, I guess. Um, you were there though. What was it like this year? Well attended. How did you enjoy the 2023 annual communication?
Well, I tell you, annual communication have been going there for many years now, because usually you are sent by your lodge. As a voting, you have to vote about resolutions that are being passed. And these are being voted by all the pillars of every lodge in California, Northern and Southern. So as a junior warden, senior warden, master, your lodge pays for your travel to be there and represent your lodge as a voting person. Now, you know, I remember seeing you there a couple of years ago at your communication. It was actually great to see you there. I think I've been going there for 8, 9, 10 years, whatever. It's always been the same. It's the same thing as you when you went a couple of years ago. The only difference is this time, we decided with La Parfaite Union, the French lodge up in San Francisco, to do a degree to show the members of California Masonry what we are, what we do, how the French degrees are, and we did that on the stage of the Grand Lodge of California. It was well attended too, and it was fun. So that was the only difference, and it worked because, like I said, we had the highest passing resolutions in 2023 at the Grand Lodge of California. I can tell you that, you know, between this beautiful French lodge that we have and this Cup and Bowl Lodge, which I'm a junior warden, no, junior deacon in, you know, in the Magic Lodge and junior warden in the French Lodge. I'm also the venerable of the Lodge of Perfection and the Long Beach Scottish Rite this year. So I run all the meetings of the Long Beach Scottish Rite. So it's a lot of work. Lucky me, I don't have to do that for the other lodges, but anymore. But in the Scottish Rite, I'm the venerable this year. So it's a lot of work. But you know, Long Beach is a beautiful cathedral, huge, very big cathedral, Scottish Rite cathedral. And I think to me that's very important to my Masonic life, to be part of the Scottish Rite.
You know, I I want to talk more about the Scottish Rite, because I know, looking at your social media, that's a major part of your Masonic career. But before we go there, I'm curious what your thoughts are regarding, we talked about attending Grand Lodge as it relates to worshipful masters and voting and things of that nature. You know, one thing I always encourage younger or newer Masons, even if you're still at the entered apprentice stage in Ontario, I always encourage that, if possible, attending the annual communication can be a really excellent experience and formative experience, even at a newer or younger time in a Masonic career, as a chance to meet brothers from across the jurisdiction, and it kind of expands your understanding of what Freemasonry is in your jurisdiction.
Well, the
So
question I have for you for this is: do your lodge pay for your pillars to go to annual communication? That's my first question. On the
it's
pillars of a lodge.
lodge by lodge basis. So in my case, I'm a member of 3 lodges, and by tradition, our lodges, 2 of them will provide funding for the master and the wardens to attend the Grand Lodge for the transportation costs, and if they're staying overnight, sometimes they'll say like X amount for travel and an additional amount on top of that if you need accommodations. So some lodges do, some lodges don't. It really just depends on the lodge and on its finances and its tradition. You know, we did try something which I thought was really interesting in one of my lodges, which is, if for whatever reason a one of the master or the wardens, if they couldn't attend, they could take the money that would have gone to them and offer it to another Mason, preferably a newer Mason, so he could go in their stead. And that's also possible because, I don't know if you have this in California, but in Ontario, since the pandemic, we have virtual voting. So you no longer need to attend in person to vote, either for Grand Lodge progression or your district deputies. That's all done virtually, which I'm a big proponent of. But that does mean there's less pressure on Grand Lodge officers and members to attend in person because you can vote virtually. So that does maybe encourage newer members to go instead.
I understand. California, we actually must go. We don't vote virtually. We must go and vote in person. And they do verify that you are a warden of a lodge, so you have the right to be a voting person. But also, a past master also had a vote. So the lodge can send 4 people in California: past master, worshipful master, senior and junior warden have voting rights. So when it comes to Los Angeles 42, I go to annual communication at the past master, so I get the past master votes. Okay, so they pay for my, I get a certain amount of money that's given to me, like the same amount is given to all of us, all the people going, which you can use for traveling, staying at a hotel, food, whatever. You get a certain amount of money, period. That's it. So if you go over it, that's your problem. If you want to stay at a $1,000 a night suite, well, you definitely won't have enough to stay 2 nights. But if you stay at a regular room, you probably have enough to stay 2 nights and pay for your flight, or you can drive. It's up to you. You know, it's not 6-hour drive. Regarding what you mentioned about having other members going instead of the wardens, we sometimes do that where a warden doesn't want to go or is busy or with his life, doesn't have time to go to 2 days in annual communication. We'll send usually our senior deacon, who's going to be the warden the following year anyway. So we'll send him there or somebody else to go and do the votes for the person that's not there. Sending a new entered apprentice, it's not a bad idea. We just never done it. I mean, it doesn't matter who you send. You have 4 people you can send to vote. If you want to send a 5th one that is not, or you want other entered apprentice to go, you really can't, because to attend the Grand Lodge communication, you must be a Master Mason, right? Not to go downstairs and buy stuff, doesn't matter. You don't even have to be a Mason. But to go into the first floor, you have to be a Master Mason.
Yeah, and so you definitely, as a newer Mason, entered apprentice or fellow crafter, maybe even, there are certain things that will be off limit to you in a Grand Lodge annual communication, especially in the States, not so much in Canada. But even still, like when I'm speaking to an entered apprentice, you know, it's there. You might not be able to attend the annual communication like stated, but I always encourage them, if they can make it and if they can afford it, to go. Like it's not just the shops that you mentioned, but you can also sit at the tables and meet brothers from all sorts of different lodges and learn what they're doing and make some friends. Or we have hospitality suites where some lodges during the communication will set up rooms with snacks and drinks and fellowship, and you can go from room to room and meet different districts, for example. So you might have brothers from London or North Bay or York district or wherever it is, welcoming you in. And it became kind of a tradition, at least for me, where every year, even before I could vote, even when I was an entered apprentice, I would go to the different hospitality suites, and I knew, like, oh, here's my buddies from London. So it's a chance to, and when I went to California, I remember I did enjoy very much as a Master Mason. I was able to attend the annual communication, but I had just as much fun downstairs getting lunch, sitting at a table. I remember I was sitting at a table with a group of Masons who their logo was their lodge pin was the Star Trek uh, So it's one of those things where I think there's a lot to. I always recommend to newer brothers. You know, if you go
What?
to an annual communication, you will find friends and you will find some brothers to
Of course.
enjoy
You know,
with.
this is what I said. It's very universal. The craft is universal. So it doesn't matter what country you go, what state you go, you will always find brothers to be there for you and help you and enjoy. But the other thing that entered apprentice and fellow craft can see while there with their girlfriend, wives, or whatever, it's open to the public, is the installation. So they can actually sit down and watch the installation of the Grand Officers of the Grand Lodge of California. That's open to the public. They can watch that. They cannot watch the opening, they cannot watch the closing, they cannot stay installed, but they can attend installation. And as any majority, I would say 99%, 98% of the installation here in lodges in California, it's open to the public. My wife comes, our girlfriend comes, our husband comes, this is today, you can be whatever you want. So we all come and attend um, installations on the lodge level or on the grand lodge level. That's open to the public. And also, when you talk about, let's say, the York rites, okay? As you know, I've done all the York rite high positions. I'm already a KYCH, which is really the highest you can go because you have to be invited after you finish everything. That also during installation of commandery or installation of Royal Arch chapter or cryptic, we open that to the public during the installation, only installation. So it's open to the public. Not all do that, but we do that here in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, where we can invite our wife or girlfriend or whatever. This is, and that way that's, a chance for them to see why are we never home? Why are we always busy with the craft? Now they understand and see why once a year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that as much as you can, as much as a Mason can, involving the family is a really important part of it. And an open installation, for example, which we don't have in Canada. I think that's one of the unique things about the States. I think most jurisdictions have open installations, and I think, like with everything else, there's pros and there's cons. The way Canada does it versus the way the States does it. But I do think one of the advantages of an open installation is it provides that opportunity for families to see a little bit more of the craft. And like you said, where we are all the time and why we're never home. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess the moral here is, even if you're a newer Mason, give attendance at Grand Lodge a serious consideration because you won't be disappointed. I do want to
Hold
move
on.
away.
Hold on. There's another. Let me say this before you continue your thought. There's another lodge which I thought was very interesting. Made their um, prospects. So before they even become an entered apprentice, make their prospect call by telephone a for them. I mean, for that lodge, a famous Mason, whatever that means, somebody that's done a lot for the craft or whatever. And I received this phone call from a stranger, says, I'm to interview you. I know you, worshipful. So you can interview me anytime you want. This guy calls me up and say, I'd like to interview you. I understand you're a famous Mason. I was like, what is a famous Mason? What does that mean? I'm a famous Mason. So the guy started interviewing me. He has this very big accent. He was from Israel. And I said, are you a Mason? He goes, no, I'm a prospect. I'm going to be joining the craft next month. I've already been kind of accepted, but I'm not yet a Mason. And my job was to interview somebody famous, and they mention you. Okay, that's interesting. Again, I still don't understand. Maybe you do. What is a famous Mason? I mean, Albert Pike, You know, I'm no Albert Pike. So, you know, just to give you an example, that's somebody famous. There's many lodge under his name. There's only one under my name. He's dead and I'm alive. That's the difference. But anyway, so he interviews me and we start talking about Israel because I was born in Israel. Even so, I'm French with zero French blood. My blood is 45% Italian. How does that happen? That's another story. We can talk about that later. But anyway, he interviews me about, and we start talking about Israel. And I said, wow, I lived in Rehovot, which is next to Tel Aviv, where I was born, Tel Aviv. And he said, oh, I'm from Rehovot. What? Which is very strange, you know. And he's like, then we start thinking, why was I doing in Israel? Why was I born there? Well, my dad worked at a very famous university there, the assistant professor. And it actually is the hardest university to get in Israel. My dad was an assistant professor finishing his PhD when I was born, you know. And this gentleman interviewing me explained to me that his grandfather and his grandfather's brother were the head of that university. Find out that my father was friend with them, very good friend, of course, because they worked together every day. And one of his grandfather's brother, they were together, became president of Israel, you know, and they went to parties with the founder of the state of Israel. And I was like, this is mind-boggling how small the world is, that I'm being interviewed by a guy that's not even a Mason, interviewing me, and to find out that his family are very close to my father, friends, because working together. And I was like, you know, here it just tells you how universal we are, that we are so far away, but we actually are so close also.
I think that you even mentioned this at the start, right? The universality of the craft, and it is universal, and that's one of the things that makes it so special. Excuse me, right? That you can be from Windsor and meet a brother from California, from Texas, New York, Manitoba, England, Romania, right? And you can find commonality and common ground. I think it's a really special part of the craft. And so that's a really cool story. And it's an amazingly small world, and Masonry makes it smaller, which is a good thing. I'm not of the faith, or you know, I'm not Jewish, but bring up Israel, and I'm not even gonna try to say the name because I'm sure I'll butcher it pronunciation wise. But I once heard of this idea in the Jewish faith that how'd they put it? That God broke the world up into pieces, and it's the responsibility of individuals to try to put the world back together or put the pieces back together. And I think I've always thought that's a really good analogy for what Freemasonry tries to do as well. That whatever languages we speak, however different we are, Freemasonry is one of the ways we try to bring each other and bring the world together. So,
To be better
anybody
people.
anybody wants to comment and tell me what the name of that kind of doctrine or that belief is, I'd appreciate it, because I always thought it was a particularly beautiful idea. So yeah, moving on to
About,
another.
is it part of the Kabbalah?
I don't know. I saw it was in a movie I saw. And like I said, they said the name of it, and I can't think of what the name was, and I'm sure I'd pronounce it wrong, but the character is a female character. She was saying that it was a part of Judaism, and the theory behind it was, again, that God that the God had broken the world up into pieces, and then the job of people and humans was to try to put the world back together again through
What do you think?
cooperation.
Are we doing a good job, or are we doing a bad job?
We seem to be doing a pretty terrible. Do you mean we as Masons or we as people? I mean, I think people are doing a pretty terrible job at the moment. We seem to be we seem to be hell-bent on tearing the world apart for some reason, but
Yeah.
I think if there is a solution to that, it lies in Freemasonry as potentially something that could repair the world and maybe stop the tendency for it to fragment further and further, and try to bring it together. You know what? I'm going to see if I can look this up quickly. I'm going to go to
Freemasonry,
Google.
remember, in Freemasonry, one of the biggest things for Freemasonry to work in any lodges is harmony. So if people tear each other apart, you have no harmony, I mean, you have no lodge. It's simple as that. You're muted. You are
There you go.
muted.
I think that's absolutely true, right? We definitely need to, yeah, and harmony is not always easy to have, right? Harmony is not going to come easy. Uh, it doesn't come easy in the world. It doesn't come easy in life. Never mind
Right.
anything else. And it doesn't always come easy in a Masonic lodge. You were talking about it this morning, actually, and somebody said, you know, as people get older, they have less and less tolerance for stupidity. But the problem is no one can agree on what is stupid. So what you may think is a great idea, someone else may think is stupid, and vice versa, and that affects harmony. I just found it here, actually. So apparently, it's called Tikkun Olam, Tikkunolam, uh, which is uh, apparently it first appears in the Talmud. So yeah, so the idea that the world is broken, so humans must repair it, which I like the idea, and I think that if there is any repairing to be done, it will be done in societies and organizations like Freemasonry, uh, or hopefully, anyways.
My thought is directly pointed to the Ark of Noah, when God was so angry that he flooded the entire world, and Noah was his job to save many different races of animals to go into his boat. They were the only thing alive, right? So I'm reminding a little bit of that, but I understand what you mean. You know, we as Freemason, we represent, like you say, we could represent a stone that is not smooth. All right. So the better we get, the smoother the stone get. The smoother the stone get, which means us, the better it can fit with another stone, right, to make an edifice, right? So even so you're not Jewish of faith, Masonry is all about King Solomon's temple. King Solomon, I am King of Tyre, I am Abiv, the Holy of Holies, and you know, whatever. It's all based on something that Judaism was or is, and we talk about that in our rituals, and we talk about it in education, and we talk about, and again, being a Mason is something that is great, where you don't have to have a certain religion. It doesn't matter what religion you are. You must believe in a supreme being. Doesn't matter how you call him or her. You must believe in a supreme being, and then become a Mason. You know, you can't be an atheist. We don't allow that.
The jumping back, we had mentioned this earlier in the interview, and I do want to touch on it quickly. You mentioned the importance of Scottish Rite in your Masonic journey, and how valuable that has been, and you know, there's Scottish Rite, there's York Rite, which is also, I'm sure, very important to your career. But what do you say to Masons considering joining a concordant body, Scottish Rite, York Rite, Shrine?
Mhm.
There's a lot of debate, I think, amongst Masons as to when is the best time to join, or when should you join, or um, you know, I think a lot of Masons struggle with trying to decide when they can join or when they should join a concordant body, or if they should. So what do you say to Masons considering going from craft lodge into a concordant body?
Well, the first thing myself, I need to realize who I'm speaking with. Okay, yes, this person is a brother. And obviously, if he wants to go into another concurrent bodies, he must be a master mason already. So we're not talking about entrepreneurs and fellowcraft. You know, always remember that your blue lodge, craft lodge, is the most important thing in masonry for someone. It should be the most important thing. So always try to help your blue lodge first, as an officer, as a person on committees. I think that all these are very important stuff. Then if the person wants to continue his Masonic journey and see more light into the York Rite or the Scottish Rite, then he should. Which one is better? There's not one who's better than the other. I mean, the York Rite has 3 bodies. The Scottish Rite has 4 bodies. I've been the head of the 3 bodies of the York Rite, and I've been the head of 3 of the 4 bodies of the Scottish Rite. Now I'm doing my final body of the Lodge of Perfection. I've been Master of Kadosh and Commander of Kadosh and Wise Master, which is the other 3 lines. I've done that already, and I'm doing my final line at the Venerable of the Lodge of Perfection, which we call also the Silent Lodge. But York Rite, I think it's up to a brother to decide if he wants to continue, which way to go. If he wants to do Scottish Rite, then fantastic. If he wants to do York Rite, then even more fantastic. There's a lot more people a member of the Scottish Rite than the York Rite in the world, because the York Rite is not everywhere in the world, especially in Europe. They have some of it, they have none of it, and they have all of it. There's 3 bodies between chapter, Royal Arch, Cryptic, and Commandery. Commandery is, as we know, the Knights Templar. And Jacques de Molay burning at a stake in 1300 something in front of Notre Dame de Paris. But again, the point is, I think a master mason should continue his journey looking at the other bodies, the other concurrent bodies, including the Shriners, which is by far the most given branch of masonry. That just by themselves, they give more than $2 million a day in charity. I mean, that's huge, with 22 hospitals or something like that. That's a lot. I mean, I think that any master mason should join a concurrent body, but not everybody does it, because time is consuming time more than being in Blue Lodge. Some people wants to do it but don't want to give back to their Blue Lodge, which I think is wrong. I think you should always give back to your Blue Lodge first. Your Blue Lodge is the most important thing. That is your mother lodge or affiliated lodge, doesn't matter. A Blue Lodge. And then you continue. I don't know. What's your thought, Worshipful?
I mean, my advice has always been to any Mason, and this is my advice, is not to join any concordant body until you are as proficient as possible in your craft lodge or Blue Lodge. So if the intention is to take offices and eventually become a master, then I always say don't join a concordant body until you have been master at least once. Until you feel as though, for me, I said I wouldn't join a concordant body until I was completely out of the East. So that wasn't just being the master, but also that was being an immediate past master. So once I was out of the immediate past master position, that's when I joined, and I joined Scottish Rite. But my suggestion has always been, if your intention is to become an officer and move through the chairs, then don't join a concordant body until you've gone through all the chairs, including the IPM chair. If your intention isn't to take an office and become a master, but rather to just, I don't like using that term, but just be a member, then you still shouldn't join until you at least are able to understand how a Blue Lodge functions and operates and what the different officers do. So, that can be a little bit easier, because then you can just spend a year studying and then join. But it's about, being as knowledgeable as possible in your craft lodge, I think, and not allowing a concordant body to take away from the experience of being an officer. I know some people out there have great time management skills and can multitask well and can handle being a concordant body member as well as an officer in their lodge, but I wasn't one of them, and I felt it was more important that I focus on being as good an officer as I could be before I joined a concordant body and had a bunch of new stuff to learn. So I know people can move up and down chairs quickly, but as a general rule, I'd say, at least 7 or 8 years from the time you're raised, because that should give you enough time to go through most of the chairs, become a master and a past master before you join concordant body. So yeah, that's my advice.
Remember this, a concordant body is very similar to a Blue Lodge. You still have 7 or 8 years to do in one of these concurrent body before you become the top of that body, right? So in same time, you can do the 7 or 8 years before you become the worshipful master of your lodge, But I give you an example. For me, in 2020, so 4 years ago, I was still worshipful master of my lodge, but I was also the illustrious master of cryptic mason, and I was also the eminent commander of Templars. In same time, was I ever home? Probably not, but I give back to my Blue Lodge, but I also give back to, I finally arrive after all these years to the top of these 2 lines of cryptic mason, of York Rite, and then I finish my final as a high priest in 2022, which I was still the worshipful master of my lodge. So,
well, you're a better man than I, because I don't think I'd be able to do all of that. So, although the second time around, after I did it that first time, I became a member of another lodge, became an officer in that lodge. But at that point, I was also in the concordant body and an officer in Rose Croix. So, but I don't think I would have been able to be whatever the office was, junior deacon, senior deacon, interguard, warden, master. I don't think I would have been able to be that officer for the first time and also be involved in Scottish Rite. But having done it once, when I went to do it in my affiliate lodge, I was comfortable enough in those positions that taking on a concordant body role wasn't overwhelming. But to have been the first time, so much of my energy was just focused on trying to do that job well, that I didn't think I would have the energy, especially because so much of it is visitation too, right? Especially as a warden. One of the biggest things you're doing as a warden is at least for us, I was visiting lodges as often as I could, because I knew that eventually I'm going to be a worshipful master, and those lodges I'm visiting, I may need them, or the members, to assist in a degree or to visit for an official visit. So even though I was at that time a member of a single lodge, I was still out 5 times a week visiting different lodges. Once I hit that warden spot, and trying to support my fellow wardens as they were on their journey to master. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, right? It's going to be a personal decision, and I've known brothers who, as soon as they became a master, joined Scottish Rite, joined York Rite, and had no regrets and really enjoyed it and were able to balance all three. I've known others who did the same thing and got burnt out almost immediately and ended up demitting in some cases from Masonry altogether. And I've known some brothers who waited a significant period of time between their raising and joining a corner body, and were happy that they waited and felt it was the best course. And I've known other brothers who did it and then wish they had joined the Concordat body sooner. So I suppose at the end of the day, it is a personal decision and everybody's going to react differently. All I can speak is for myself. I'm happy with the way I did it, and I think that it was the best thing for my Masonic career.
But I
to have
agree
gone
with you
away.
about going to visit other lodges. It's very important, you know, because if you don't do that, I mean, you're really not interested in what other lodges do. You're not interested. Like you, I did the same thing. When I was master 4 years, but I was a junior warden, senior warden, 1 year each. So even as a master, I went to see other lodges installations because I had friends that became worshipful master or became a warden or become something. So I always attend installations of all the local lodges around me. And during my 4 years of mastership, obviously, I've used a lot of these brothers to do degrees with me in my lodge. As you know, it's not always simple to have your officers to be there on time, to be there every time you do a degree. So, as you did, I had to go and find brothers from other lodges to become positions during degrees. Actually, I mastered that very well. I was top of the line doing it. I was always getting people from other lodges to do degrees with us. And I think that's actually important. And these people, these brothers that I used from other lodges, actually, a lot of them actually became members of my lodge because they really enjoyed my lodge. They enjoyed, as you did, they enjoyed the uh, the universality of our members, from Iranian to black to white to French to English to Romanian. We have brothers from all over the place. And I think it's great. One of the things that we have at LA 42, which I became after I stopped being the junior past master, I became the international representative. And why did I become the international representative of my lodge? It's because we have a lot of international members. So now we do Zoom meetings once a month for our international members to keep up with what we do. And the chair of the committee of one, it's me. I make sure that we have news of all these members that pay dues to LA 42, but lives in another country. We have grand officers from Romania, from Bulgaria, from Mexico, from different countries. And this is not talking about the Grand Master of Romania as a member of our lodge. All these grand officers, from the Grand Lodge of Russia, we have 3 officers that are member of LA 42. So somebody has to keep them posted of what we do. Hopefully they do get the emails from the worshipful master in communication, but I think having a Zoom meeting and reunited each other face to face on Zoom and talking about planche, educational stuff. One brother will do an educational. Planche is planche.
No.
Like when you do a degree before you become a second degree or third degree or first degree, you write an essay about a certain thing about degrees. So we have that being done by a member. Let's say a Romanian brother who's doing an essay, and then we'll talk about that essay during the Zoom meeting. Why do we have an
That is
altar?
really that is really cool.
Yeah, and you think about we and I talk about the universality about Masonry, but you have to remember that the majority of the work in Europe, as an example, Bulgaria or Russia, it is not the same ritual that we do here in California. Probably not. So the members of LF42 learn something new, and when we do RSAs, the member of European Masonry learns something new for them because it's done differently. Even so, we're all Masons.
Excuse me. Apparently, I can't swallow. Yeah, I think that, well, first, I love the idea that you are continuing with Zoom meetings. I really think, in a lot of ways, Freemasonry absolutely dropped the ball. You know, the pandemic, the silver lining for the pandemic, if there was one, at least in terms of Freemasonry, was it forced Freemasonry and Freemasons to adapt and start actually taking advantage of online and virtual tools. And there was, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but there was a lot of advantages to using online tools. The biggest one, at least for me, because I organized one of my lodge's virtual meetings, and we had them every month that we were allowed to by Grand Lodge, is you could bring in guests because you know the I think I've said this on the podcast before. I think that the smartest thing our Grand Lodge ever did, Ontario, since I've been a Mason in 2007, the smartest decision they ever made was allowing virtual meetings, but not allowing them to be tiled, which I think was genius, because what it meant is we could bring in guest speakers who weren't Masons. We didn't have to go labor refreshment and blah blah blah. We didn't have to. We could keep in touch with applicants who maybe applied before the pandemic but then couldn't join. We could invite interested parties into Freemasonry. We could do virtual events. We did a virtual beer and cheese tasting where we had packages of beer and cheese sent out to participants through in the mail and delivered to them. And then we had an online tasting with a brewer. And virtual meetings, it gave us the chance to try different things and bring in guest speakers and guests, and we had Masons joining us from Scotland, from Romania, from California, from Tennessee. It made visitation so much so much better. And I was really disappointed that I understand why, and it's probably bound to happen, but once we were allowed to meet in person again, I was really hoping we would maintain some of those virtual meetings, at least in my jurisdiction, so we could keep on bringing in these guest speakers and meeting with brothers who may have moved away and couldn't visit in person and doing all these types of things. But unfortunately, by and large, virtual meetings seem to have gone away again. And I do think it's unfortunate. So I think it's great that you're maintaining those Zoom meetings. I think that's a good thing, and I'm hoping more lodges start to see the benefit of virtual meetings and what it can do for
As
a
you
lodge.
said, you have some brethren that are moved away and handle the communication with brothers. You have to understand Grand Lodges. For them, even for me, it's always better to meet in person. Meet in person is you see the brother, you feel the brother, you talk to the brother face to face, you have interaction. And I think that's very important in the craft. Okay, but there is some brethren that cannot be there. My guy in Romania, they're going to fly 10,000 miles to come to a state meeting, and same thing with the one in Bulgaria or Russia or whatever. They're not going to do that. They'll come whenever they can. They have a home because they are actually members. If they're not members, they can always come as guests because they have already been vouched for, and they are in good standing. but the reason it's not, we don't tile our online meetings. I mean, if we're going to talk about something about our degrees and masonry in general, of course, prospects are not going to attend that particular meeting. But if we are going to talk with each other just to say hello, how we doing, with a brother from Mexico or a guy from somewhere else, another country, yeah, prospects can come in the meeting. We have no problem with that. We've done that. And, I was the first one because unfortunately, one of the years I was worshipful master of my lodge, LA42, what you see behind me, it was during the pandemic, so we couldn't meet in person. So I got used to do Zoom meeting without being tiled. Of course, no degrees were being done, but we couldn't tile Zoom meetings. So I got used to doing that. And fortunately for us, now that we have so many members that are from other countries, I thought me as the international representative of LA42, it was important for me to unite all these brothers into a meeting from being far away by using the web. I think was something that's important. And as you say, I mean, some brothers are far, cannot make it. Some brothers live other places now, and only way to bring them together, the unity is by doing Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so good on yourself, good on Los Angeles Lodge number 42. Any Masons watching this, don't give up on virtual meetings. Don't give up certainly on in-person meetings. Those are the most important thing. I think you can't have Masonry without an in-person meeting, but like anything else, right? Virtual meetings can be a tool that you can use. So keep that in mind, and take a page out of Worship Brother Khaiat's book, because it's a great idea. We're going to end with a couple questions. I've been trying to ask more Masons offline, and I'm going to ask you this online. These two questions. First, what when you look into the future, what concerns you the most in regards to Freemasonry, or what problems do you see potentially arising?
Well, if we're trying to have the same amount of Masons that we had in the mid 1900s, that's not going to happen. I think Masonries have been slowing down. People have less times. They're more busy with their life and work. But I'm more worried about, as Mason, about all this instability of what's going on in the world today, which no harmony. So, and hopefully Masons can understand and maybe feel better about themselves by unifying themselves and being harmonious with themselves, respecting one another. So in the future, I hope in, at least in Masonry, that we do have more Masons, and we are far from having no Masons coming in. I mean, we have a line of people in every lodges here, at least, that wants to become Masons. So it's a continuation. What I worry about, the people that we get in that decide to demit because it's not really for them. It's a little late because now they are Masons. They know some of our secrets. You remember, people always said to me, we are a secret society. You are a secret society. We are not a secret society. You can look on anywhere on Google and you can find us. We're not a secret society. We're a society with secrets. But unfortunately, when you let a Mason in, a person in the Masonry, he start learning some of our secret, obviously some, and then decide to demit because he decides it's not for him. That doesn't look good, does it? So hopefully the future will be bright, And we'll go from darkness to light by seeing more Masons join the craft and become better people. So harmony in the world can get better. You know, it's not happening right now, but that's what I'm hoping. Go ahead.
Well, and that brings me to my last question then. What most excites you about the future of Freemasonry?
Exciting. Wow. I don't know the answer on that. I don't know what excites me about future of Masonry. Um, I'm not going for a grand line office. So for me, as a person, I'm happy where I am. I'm hoping that more members, more people will join the craft and become better people. You know, we have too many, this world has too many bad people. It's unfortunate. So, you know, as you know, I'm sure you've heard this, when you're born, you're exactly the same as the person next to you in the hospital. Because as soon as you go home, you're different because you could be from a $1 billion family to a very poor family. So in the hospital, you're the same. You go home, it changes everything. So depends how you grow and how your parents take care of you as a child to become what you are today, like you as an example, a very good example of being a good person. You know, and that's something that or you learned along the way, or you were raised correctly. And if you weren't raised correctly, maybe you decided to make a change in your life and become good. Like we are, like you are, you know. I don't know, the future, is it exciting for me? No, it's not really exciting. It's something that I'm hoping that will happen. I'm hoping it's not an excitement, but it's a reality. It's reality.
I appreciate you saying I'm a good person. I don't know if that's always true, but I'm better today than I was yesterday. At least that's my hope. So,
I've met
which
you
is
in real life, and I tell you, you are a good person, and you are. You are a very good, worshipful brother. You know,
I appreciate that, and you are as well, right? And I know all the things that you do for the craft. It was great to see you get your recognition through the lodge dedication. It was well deserved, and I haven't been to California. I don't think I was there at all in 2023, but it's on my list. I want to get back there because I've enjoyed it every time. So 2024, hopefully I'll be able to make it back to Los Angeles in particular and see you in lodge again. And worshipful sir, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast for round 2. Much appreciated.
thank you, sir.